Okay, we're live. First of all, greetings to the people in the chat. Some familiar faces are watching again. Whoa, big problem. Didn't shut off the sound. Okay, still have to learn a thing or two. So, Steve, welcome again.
Yeah, welcome. Nice to speak to you again, Peter.
Okay, how have you been doing?
Yeah, life's good. I'm over in Dubai at the moment, so tired, but everything's going to plan. So first week's over.
Good,
I've got
good to hear.
Yeah.
Good to hear. Yeah, I wanted to revisit our first talk because that got lost because the recording software didn't work on that one, and I still think that was one we shouldn't have lost, and so I'll hope we can address the same things pretty much. So my usual question to you is do a short introduction of yourself and tell us what you believe and why you believe it.
Sure. Well, my name's Steve. I live in the UK. Hello to anybody that's listening. I'm a Christian, so I believe in pretty much everything that you would expect a Christian to believe in. I believe in the Holy Trinity. I believe the Bible's the Word of God. I believe there is an afterlife, there is a heaven and hell, and everything else you would expect a Christian to believe. Do you want me to go into the reasons why I believe it now, or I'm happy to do either? So I'll carry on.
Sorry, I had myself muted. If you like, yes, please.
Yeah, sure, no worries. Just to give a bit of a background to people, if they may have listened to other talks, but if not, I was raised in England. I know people are usually keen to know, was I raised Christian or not raised Christian? My mother was a churchgoer. My father wasn't a churchgoer. He was an alcoholic at the time. Thanks to God, he's changed his life around now. He found Jesus and got off drink, and he spends his time now helping other people get off drink and drugs. My grandmother was a born-again Christian, and I spent a lot of time with her, so she was an influence when I was younger. We went to the Sunday schools and all the usual things that people do in England. But when I was, I think 14 or 15, I went to a Christian conference called Spring Harvest with a friend of mine, Simon. And that's where I first had an encounter with God personally. So the reason, if you ask why I believe in everything, stems from that time when I was 14 or 15 years old. And obviously since then, there's been a whole story after that. But that's the reason why I believe, is because when I went to the conference, I had a very personal, supernatural encounter with God.
And can you tell us what exactly happened?
Yeah, sure. The truth is, me and Simon we only went to the weekend for a laugh, to be honest, because we're only kids. We're 14, 15 years old. And while you're at the conference, they do a lot of activities for youth, and they have various sermons on, various lectures on, and we pretty much took it with a piece of salt. Excuse me. But then after one of the talks that we went to, both Simon and I at the same time had like it's very hard to describe, and I tried describing it to you last time. It's hard to describe. All I can class it's like a supernatural experience where we both give our lives to Jesus on the same night. And it was almost a physical experience. We went into, people laid hands on us, people prayed for us. I can't describe the feeling except for saying it was like totally euphoric feeling. There's no music on or anything like this. But what was more special for us is we both smoked at the time. Or I smoked. I shouldn't say Simon in case his parents are listening. But I smoked at the time. And we went outside afterwards and we stood in a field. We were both amazed at what had just happened. And when we was in the field, we was just sort of looking at each other saying, what on earth was this about? Simon started speaking in tongues. My body was shaking. It was just an incredible experience. At the time it happened, it was absolutely throwing it down with rain. The rain was bouncing. We was both sort of hugging each other and smiling and laughing. And at one point I said to Simon, I said, the rain's not touching us. And it's hard to describe to somebody who wasn't there, but there was rain everywhere around us. We had, obviously we had our clothes on. The rain wasn't touching our clothes. It wasn't touching our arms. We would actually run around the field trying to catch the rain, but we was bone dry all the way through. And for us, it was just a supernatural experience. There's no other explanation that we could think of. And that was the reason why I'm so convinced that God is true, because I felt the supernatural at that time. However, like you said, there's a whole story after this, and there's other reasons why, but that's the main reason why I first believed in God and Christianity and everything else.
Okay. So you mentioned a couple of points. I'll try to address all of them. First thing I want to get to is the last one that you mentioned, and the way you mentioned it, the fact that the rain didn't touch you, and you said you didn't have another explanation.
No, I mean, we're standing.
Yeah, but if
it's like standing under the shower.
Yes, I know, but
if you imagine standing under the shower.
Yes, but that's not what I was going to point out. If you say I don't have another explanation, that by definition is the argument of ignorance fallacy.
Well, I don't know.
Not having.
I understand what you're saying, Peter.
Yeah, not having a different explanation doesn't mean there isn't one.
Yeah, I understand the argument that you make. If you
because I usually clarify a little bit, because when you say argument from ignorance fallacy, a lot of people aren't aware that's actually what it's called, and usually jump to the fact that they are insulted because I just called them ignorant, and that's not what it means. It's the exact opposite. So I just want to clarify, not only for you, but for people who might be listening and are not aware and drawing the same conclusions. But let's get back to where you started. You said you were in a some sort of church meeting, some sort of service.
Yeah, and if you imagine, maybe
yeah, just let me recap, see if I have it correct. And people prayed for you and laid hands on you. Okay, so there was a certain atmosphere at the time. Wouldn't you agree?
Just to give you a picture of the scene, if you picture a room with maybe, I don't know, maybe 100, 200 youth, ranging from, I don't know, maybe 17, 18, down to, I don't know, 12. There was a sermon, like a preacher or vicar or whatever you call them, doing the sermon. And as they was doing the sermon, both me and Simon felt the same feeling. And that's when they asked people, if you want to give your lives to Jesus, now's the time. And both of us looked at each other and we was both ready to do that. And they said, if you are, come to the front. And we went to the front. And while we was at the front, that's when, they got like the I don't know what they call them, the leaders, church leaders, and they laid hands on us and they prayed for us. And this is when it happened as such, just so you can try and get a picture in your mind of the scene.
Yeah, I know that. What I was referring to is the atmosphere in the room, and when you say people prayed for you and laid hands on you, were you on the stage?
No, it's like there was a small stage, but it was like in front. There was quite a few people went up at the same time. I don't know, maybe 20 people went up at the same time, but we wasn't standing on a stage. It was like before the stage, between the front row of the seats and the stage. You know, you would have a small gap between there, and all the people that wanted to give their lives to Jesus went there, and then obviously people came and they would pray with you and etc.
Okay, so there definitely was some kind of an atmosphere, some kind of a buzz going on for the people
it's like
attending.
a sermon. If you yeah, it wasn't.
Yeah,
it wasn't
but
almost.
I think it's a little bit more than a sermon. If you actually step up to or towards the podium to accept Jesus, I think there's a little bit more going on emotionally than just attending a service.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's
I agree with you 100%.
Okay, because and that's what I wanted to point out, because we already know that things like that can influence your brain and can influence how you perceive things. That's the reason I wanted to point that out.
Sure, I understand.
You said there is no music. Music tends to do that as well. I think everyone has a song. Whenever that plays, it takes them back. It brings back memories, and it can be quite emotional, either good or bad. So,
yeah, I agree.
And the same thing happens when you're in a situation where emotions run high. That's what I was trying to point out.
Yeah, I can understand what you say. What you say. It wasn't anything. I was there, so I understand. I know what happened on the night. Music-wise, if you go to any church, usually they will play songs at the start of the sermon, and then you go into a sermon. It was the same here. It was during the sermon itself, when they was talking about the gospel of Jesus Christ. This is where, for me, I started to feel moved towards doing this. So it wasn't. I wouldn't say it was. You know, one of these. I'm not sure if in your mind you have this picture that, you know, they've cranked up the guitars and the guy's hyped up and we've suddenly been whooped up into a frenzy. But that's not what it was like. That wasn't the situation.
No, but you don't need the guitars. You can do that. You can do that just by creating an atmosphere and giving the right sermon. That's not that much difference.
Yeah, is that what you think happened?
I think it would be a good explanation. The fact that we cannot go back and check what exactly happened makes it so we won't know for sure.
Yeah,
but it also means that we have a perfectly explanation for the fact that you might have experienced things that may or may not be necessarily what you think you experienced. That's what I'm trying to point out.
No, you're being very polite, Peter, but I know what you're saying. It's almost if you imagine. I'm trying to think how the best way to say this. Because of my job, I go to seminars after seminars after seminars. I go watching motivational speakers and business leaders and in big stadiums with 10,000 people, and we go and watch most of the top leaders that you see around the world, I go watching in stadiums. All I can say is it's not even remotely on the same scale as what happened that day. It was a physical, spiritual feeling.
No, but
not just
okay,
getting hyped up
but
because a speaker.
let's address that what you just said. Are you emotionally as attached to some of those world leaders as you religion?
Sorry, Peter, could you repeat it? Broke up a little bit then.
You said you go to motivational speakers and world leaders.
Yes.
But
yes.
Are you as emotionally involved with them as you are with Christianity?
Well, when we went to the festival, the Spring Harvest Festival, I think it was called, we wasn't emotionally involved with anybody. Me and Simon went down there just basically to have a laugh for the weekend, get away from the parents, and it wasn't something that we went down there expecting anything to happen. We just went because it was like a weekend away from the church.
But you were already a Christian when you went there.
Well, I went to church, should I say? Yeah, not a Christian, but I went to church.
Yeah, that's to me that's exactly the same for some Christians, not for all, but for some Christians. They say there's a difference. I don't think there's that much of a difference. But I couldn't be a real judge of that because I never was religious in any way, so I couldn't relate to that 100%. But what I'm saying is you went there at least with clear expectations of what was going to happen there. You were aware that there would be sermons. You were aware that
yes, yeah,
it would be addressed. So and that sets you up for having an emotional experience, even if you're not completely aware of it, even when you think I was going there just to have a laugh. I think in the back of your mind it was a little bit more serious than you may want to admit at that point, at that age.
Well, with two 14-year-old boys given a weekend away in a campsite away from our parents, I think most 14-year-old boys are thinking the same thing. So for us, we wasn't going for any spiritual reason. We was just going to have a laugh and a weekend away from the parents and doing this. And it was something I will never convince you, Peter, because I know you don't believe me. But it's not
something that it's can be pinned down. So I don't believe you. I would believe you if there would be sufficient evidence. And
yeah,
because we cannot go back to that particular moment. That particular moment is a first-hand experience, and that can never be any evidence for me.
Well, for you no, for you it can't be. No, for me obviously it's crystal clear.
I'm not sure if that's entirely intellectually honest, but I can you say it was crystal clear, yet you also say I don't have another explanation. And as I just pointed out, there could be another explanation. You just don't have one at the moment. And the fact that there could be a different explanation has to stop you from reaching a conclusion, because you haven't checked all the options yet. So you can't make a 100%. You can't make 100% clear decision
Yeah.
on what actually happened if you haven't ruled out possible options.
Well,
That's
for us,
that was
I can understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
But I can understand what you're saying, Peter. For us, it was absolutely not even a question of doubt. We knew exactly what had happened. What I was saying before about that explanation was when we went out into the field, I'd never heard anybody speaking in tongues until that point. So that's what I was saying, where we was sort of almost in a state of euphoria. I didn't know why Simon was speaking this strange language or what it meant.
And that to me would be another sign, because and I think most scholars and even most denominations agree with me on this, that when the Bible mentions speaking in tongues, it literally means that they speak a different language, not an unknown language, but a known language.
The Bible also says the gift of interpreting tongues.
Yes,
in the same verse.
But tongues at that moment, and in the way it was written down, tongues just meant a different language, not an unknown language.
Yeah, I know the verse you're talking
about. A different existing language. And when I see people in Pentecostal churches and they are speaking in tongues, they are speaking in what at least others would see as gibberish.
Yeah,
they're not speaking
no,
they're not speaking an actual existing language. That's what I wanted to point out.
And you know every language?
Sorry? Can you say that again?
I said, do you know every language?
I don't know every language.
So how do you know they're speaking gibberish?
Because it's not a known language. And it's not up to me to point out if it's a known language. It can be tested. If you look at people speaking in tongues and you go around all over the world, it isn't a known language.
Well, if you read the Bible, it says inside the Bible, it gives a list of the gifts of God.
Yes.
And there's the gift of prophecy, there's the gifts of faith, the gifts of healing, the gifts of tongues, the gifts of interpreting tongues.
Yes, and tongues still means, in the way it was written down in the original text, still means existing known languages at the time.
Well, why would it say then there's a gift of God of interpreting tongues?
It's a gift of God to be able to talk to everyone living on this earth. So
why would then God make it? Why would God then say in the Bible?
Actually meant. That's what it actually meant, and that's it. It goes back to the Tower of Babel, where God supposedly messed up the language and had everyone speak a different language. That's where it's pointing back to, and that's what scholars say it's pointing back to. And
well, the scholars say it comes from the Book of Acts.
Only a very small number of churches interpret it different, and they speak something that isn't a known language. And the problem that I also have with it is that one person speaking in tongues, if you put another person speaking in tongues next to him, they're not able to communicate.
But that's why I'm asking you, Peter, why does it say that in the Bible that one of the spiritual gifts of God is the interpretation of tongues?
Yes, it's the interpretation of foreign languages.
Well, that's okay.
That's what
If
it.
it was in,
According to scholars and according to people who have studied the we can't say originals because we don't have them, but the earliest texts that we have, that's what it meant. In
I under,
language is fluid, so words can mean different things at different times. Gay, for instance, at one point just meant happy and cheerful, and has a completely
sure,
different meaning now. Girl used to mean boy, and has
yeah,
the opposite meaning at the moment. So when you go back to speaking in tongues, at that time, tongues just was their way of saying foreign languages.
yeah. Do
And
you
when
know that?
people speak it, and when people speak in tongues, they, at least I've never seen anyone speak a foreign language. Not one.
Yeah. What actually happened, Peter, in the book of Acts, when Jesus had ascended into heaven, and he said that he was going to send somebody afterwards. When they was in the upper room, I think this is the reference that you're making. When they was in the upper room and they were speaking in tongues, and the people outside heard them speaking in tongues. Originally, they thought they was drunk, but then people started to say, "How come I can hear my own language?" And there was people from all over the different regions, all the different languages, and yet they could hear people speaking in their own language. I think this is the part of the Bible you're talking about. It's in Book of Acts. So I totally understand. Sometimes speaking in tongues. I mean, I don't speak in tongues. I've not been given that gift, so I'm no expert on it. But I know that people can interpret tongues because it says so in my Bible,
Well,
and I've seen.
if the book is correct, then every Christian should have that gift. Am I wrong?
I think you are. Yeah, I'm not sure, but I'm not sure. Have you seen a verse that says everybody should speak in tongues? I haven't.
I think it's I'm not I don't know the verse by heart, but I think that I'm pretty close when I say that it says that every real Christian who has real faith will be given that gift. And it's not only speaking in
Yeah.
tongues, but it's also being able to resist poison, and it's also being able to raise the dead.
Yeah,
That's
well,
all.
I'll have to concede. I don't know the verse that you mean. I do know that there's a section in the Bible that lists, and it says each person, the gifts of God are given to each person, and it gives a list. It talks about prophecy, it talks about healing, about tongues, about faith, about many other things. And he said to each God decides who he gives the gifts to. So, but I do know in the different churches there's different views on. I've never spoken in tongues. Many of my friends do. I don't. So
yeah. And what another problem for me is that the most common is speaking in tongues. There in the US there are a couple of churches who are also demonstrating that they are resistant to poison. The famous ones are the snake handlers in the US, who still die when they get bitten by snakes, and they have a way of subduing the snakes before they go into a service. So I'm not sure if that's completely honest. What we don't see as the most common one is raising people from the dead. And I've seen a couple of pastors actually claim that they can do it, and yet no one has ever produced such a thing with witnesses present. It's always it's always a story. I went there and this and that happened, but it's nothing we can check after the fact. No one
Well,
has come forward and went to a hospital and said, "Wait, let people know that we're here. If someone is here and a relative just died, I will bring them back from the dead." No one has ever tried that. Not a
yeah.
single one.
Well, it has happened, Peter. If you
No, it
want to
hasn't.
meet, if you want to meet
No,
people, if you want, you buy a plane ticket to South Africa tomorrow. Go
yes,
look up a guy called Angus Buchan.
yes, I have, and
Yeah, and if you
I
have
think,
you
I
seen,
think, I think,
you
I
can
think
speak.
he's a fraud because he also has never had people check if what he's doing is actually true. The people who he has involved in what I would call his scams are all people that are in on it. There's no external people allowed to check whether or not someone is actually dead, and if they are raised by what he is doing. Because
Yeah, but if you checked him out, you know the story. You know that would be an impossibility because at the time the person was raised from the dead, he has all the witnesses that was there with him.
Yes.
But he has all the witnesses that was there with him. Now, you're not telling me you would expect him to quickly ring a scientist and say, "Could you come down with your equipment before I pray for this guy?"
Why not?
That doesn't make any sense.
Why not?
Why on earth would he do that?
Why not?
That would be for whose benefit?
For science?
Well, like I say, we'll have to agree to disagree. I think if somebody was lying dead in front of me,
what would stop him from those are planned services where people can attend.
no, it
They
wasn't
know
a
in
planned
advance
service.
where. No,
It
I
wasn't a
said
planned
don't.
service.
I don't. I'm not pointing to just one particular event. I know that some of the resurrections are planned services. If those are happening, it wouldn't be any problem to call in at least a doctor, have a doctor present.
Sure.
Even when it's not planned, if you have a skeptical doctor who would agree to go with him on a call, should he get one. But that's something that he won't allow. And the fact that he doesn't allow it is what alarms me.
Well, I would ask you for something that you've seen that says he doesn't allow it. I think you're making that up because I'll give you credit on one thing, Peter. I do believe a lot of the people that are putting the videos out and saying this, I think some of those are fake. I'll be honest with you. But I also do genuinely believe that people are raised from the dead.
So, but
now,
if
one's fake, which one's not?
If that's a fact, why don't we see these people working in hospitals?
Because I don't think it looks like that.
If they actually have that gift, and if they actually are decent human beings, why wouldn't their first trip be to go to a hospital and perform their gift on a regular basis in order to help people?
Because I think you're mistaking I think you're mistaking the fact that you think it's them that's raising people from the dead. It's not. It's God.
Yes.
It just happens that at that particular moment, through that person, they raised somebody from the dead.
And
it may not be that they.
And you think that God would be against them going to a hospital and raising more people from the dead, or at least have God raise more people from the dead?
I don't know how many he raises from the dead. But what I mean is that don't mistake the fact if a preacher says, "I raised somebody from the dead," that doesn't mean he can do it at the tip of a hat whenever he feels like it. These are very rare events. If it was happening every single day, I can understand what you would say. But these are miraculous, supernatural events. that happen as and when. So there's no. I get what you're saying, Peter. I know you're looking for a scientific evidence to say everything.
What you say now, what does that say about your God?
What do you mean?
You said it's not up to the one who has been given the gift. It's up to God.
It's always, everything's up to God.
Okay, but if the people are willing to put their gift to the benefit of more people, why would God be against that?
I don't know, Peter. I'm not God. I spoke to somebody yesterday on Twitter.
You're not God, but you at least we have the Bible, so we have some of the attributes of God. If God is all good,
yes,
and if God is a loving God, and if He is interested in everyone knowing about Him, and if He's interested in everybody loving Him, why wouldn't He raise more people from the dead?
I don't know. I don't know the answer to that question.
Okay, I'll ask it in a different way. The fact that He doesn't, wouldn't that go against the attributes I just listed?
I'll give you an example. I spoke to a guy last night on Twitter. I don't know who he was. He's a nice chap, actually. It was quite a nice, pleasant conversation. He'd lost his mother, sadly. And he said he prayed vehemently for his mother to be saved. And yet she passed away. And he was an atheist, and he was saying to me, how could your God let my mother pass away? I don't know the answer to that question. How could I possibly know why God would raise somebody from the dead, why He would heal somebody and not heal somebody else? These are questions beyond human comprehension, and it's easy to make an assumption.
Why would they be beyond human comprehension?
Well, can you comprehend it? I can't.
If I would have been given the same attributes as a God, I will act completely different. Yes.
So you wouldn't let anybody die?
Because if I would have the powers that the biblical God has, things would be a lot different in the world.
You wouldn't allow anybody to die?
No, I would allow people to die, because I think living for eternity is, at least to me, that would be hell.
Depends where you are.
No, it doesn't depend where you are. It doesn't depend where you are. If you're going to live for eternity, first of all, if that should be possible, then we can't have children anymore, because the world would be overpopulated in no time, and we would have to stack people, literally.
Yes.
So that wouldn't be a problem. I also think that living for eternity would be hell, because during a lifetime you get to do what you want to do. Some achieve a little bit more than others, but at least everyone is given the same chances. If you were to live for eternity, what would there be left to do after 1,000 years, let alone after 1 billion years? To do, and it would become it would become boredom. And it's the same thing when you go to a concert or to an amusement park. That's only you only feel good there because there's an end to it.
Yes, I see
If
your point.
that would be an everyday occurrence, it wouldn't be special. You wouldn't
I
have
totally
any
understand what
reasons
you're
to
saying.
go there. And that's
Yeah.
the same with living for eternity. It
But
would
you see,
end up being hell. And when I address living eternally as it is depicted in the Bible, you would have no feelings. You would have no feelings of love anymore.
where does it say that in the Bible?
And living, it's what follows if you see how it's depicted.
It says no pain, no suffering.
Yes.
It doesn't say no love. I don't know. I'm not sure whether you can have children in heaven or not.
No, I say, do you have children now?
I don't have children. No, I don't.
You don't have children.
I have two boys, two nephews. We call my boys.
Okay.
Which we
Okay.
love like our own children, but they're not my blood children.
Let's go with that. Let's suppose one of them, and you can pick your favorite one. Let's suppose one of them becomes an atheist. That would mean he would not go to heaven. Am I correct?
I'm listening.
Yeah, am I correct? If one of them,
no, I'm listening to what your scenario is.
Okay. So he wouldn't make it into heaven, and you would. How would that make you feel seeing him ending up in hell? Because that's the other option.
Yeah. Well, there is a story in the Bible about the very same thing. The truth is, I don't know how I will feel when I'm in heaven. If I'm talking as a human being now, I would rather give my life for his any day of the week. If I'm talking as a human being, as a human being in this life, that's how I would feel. How I will feel in a different life after death has already gone, I don't know.
So your emotions and your love is taken away from you in heaven. If you feel different. If you don't feel different,
well, maybe,
then you still.
It said pain and suffering.
Yes, and you wouldn't be in pain, and you wouldn't suffer if you would know that your nephew was in hell.
No, of course. I love my nephews with all my heart. I would rather give my life for them than have my own life.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I mean.
No. Well, let me finish.
Either it's not you. Yeah, but either it's not you who's in heaven, or things are taken away from you. Love is taken away from you. Compassion is taken away from you. Which means you're pretty much a robot when you're in heaven. And to me, that's not heaven.
Well, you're making a huge amount of assumptions, Peter, without backing them up.
No, I'm not. And I just had you pointed out. You said, I would give my life for them to go to heaven. That's the compassion you have.
Yes, I would.
Right? That's the compassion you have right now. Should you make it to heaven? Should you make it to heaven? And after you go to heaven, one of them becomes an atheist, there's nothing you can do anymore. But you wouldn't.
No, there isn't.
You wouldn't feel pain. You wouldn't feel sorrow, but you would be well aware that he was going to hell.
And how do you know that?
Because he wouldn't join you in heaven.
Well, do you know that we'll meet people in heaven?
Even after a while, you would know that he's not there and he's not coming.
And how do you know that?
Because we have a certain lifespan. I mean, you can wait until he is, let's say, 120 and 130 years old, and he still hasn't ended up in heaven. I think after 200 years, it would be safe to say that he's not coming anymore. So you would be well
No,
aware.
what I'm saying is,
you would be well aware
what
that
I'm saying is,
he was sent to hell, and you wouldn't feel pain or sorrow at that point. If that is the fact, then you're nothing more than
the truth.
just a robot.
Well, what I'm saying, Peter, is
Everything that is actually you is taken away from you. Your compassion is
well,
taken away.
but let me ask you a question. You said that when I'm in heaven, I will know somebody has gone to hell. How do you know that?
That I'm basing off Christians.
From where? From where though? Because you obviously you have a strong belief.
Your grandmother passed away. Weren't you the
Yeah,
one?
I love it. I love it dearly.
Weren't you the one telling me that you will meet again in heaven?
I hope so. Yeah, I hope so. But I don't know that's a fact. I hope so. In my human mind.
Then we have another.
I would dream.
Then we have
I
another.
will one day meet my grandmother again.
Yeah. Then we have another.
But I don't know.
Then we have another problem. Suppose you go to heaven, and you'll never see your grandmother again. How would you feel about that? Knowing that she's
Just
there.
repeat that, Peter. Sorry.
I said.
Could you say again? Sorry.
Yeah. When you go to heaven at some point, and you know your grandmother is there, and you won't see her again, ever, what would your feelings be about that?
Like I said, as a human being living on planet Earth in this reality, I would love to see her again. I have no idea how I would feel. I don't even know whether I would know her, recognize her. I don't know how it works.
If I take what you just said literally, it means that when you go to heaven, you're no longer a human being?
No, yeah, of course I'm not a human being.
You would get different values. You would get a different different outlook on things.
If you listen back to the tape, I've said maybe 4 or 5 times, I have no idea how, when I'm in heaven, I will feel. I have no idea. I'm a human being.
That's what I'm addressing. If you are not the same, if you are not Steve when you're in heaven, there are 2 questions. Is it actually you who is in heaven?
And what's the second one?
Or is it Steve, but Steve is stripped of some of his privileges? Being love, compassion.
Yeah, I'll say the same thing again, Peter, as I keep saying. I don't know when I'm in heaven how I will be. I don't know. What I do know is there's no pain, there's no suffering, and it's a place where I'm with my God who I love, and that's what I know. How I will be there, I don't know whether it's a physical body, whether it's a spiritual body.
I'll ask a different question. Let's go back to your nephews. Sure. If your nephew was going to hell, you said I would give anything for him. Now you say when I'm in heaven, I don't know, but I will be with my God. What would be your first choice? Have your nephew be with God, or you be with your God?
I would want my nephew with God. I would want you with God. I would want all the atheists that are listening with God. That would be my first choice. That's why I spend so much time talking about God, trying to speak to people on Twitter, because I want everyone to be there. I want you to be there.
I wouldn't want to be there, and I've listed my first reason because I wouldn't want eternal life, and I couldn't go there knowing that I had to worship the God of the Bible, because I don't think the God of the Bible is worth worshiping, and that I base on what is told about that God in the Bible. And there are a couple of points that I strongly object to.
Yeah, and I'm sorry you feel that way. I wish you didn't feel that way.
It's not something to feel sorry for. I'm feeling sorry for people who actually look beyond that and push that aside without actually looking at what is wrong and judging it accordingly.
Yeah.
Because you wouldn't accept any human being who's endorsing and commanding slavery. Am I correct?
No. Yes, correct. And we have this conversation.
Why is this acceptable for God?
Because, as we spoke about last time, I was quite open with you. Some of the things in the Bible challenge me. We spoke about particular verses in the Bible last time. You know which verses we spoke about. And some of them I don't understand. But what I do is I look at the whole of the Bible. And a lot of some of the Bible is historical. Some of the Bible are songs. Some are psalms. Some are love letters. Some are wisdom texts. Some are teaching texts. The whole Bible is to be taken as a context, in the whole context.
And some are commands to kill. Yes, but I want to. You list no. You listed all the nice things. What you left out is all the bad.
You didn't let me finish.
Some are commands to kill. Some are commands to take slaves. Some are even commands to take child sex slaves.
I know the verse you're talking about. Does it say child or does it say virgin?
It says women, children who have not lain with a man, who have not known a man. It's different in different versions, but
it says virgins.
It's clear.
Yeah.
It's clear that it talks about virgin children, and you get to keep them for yourself. The only reason the Bible ever mentioned why a woman has to be a virgin is to become a wife, or a concubine, or a sex slave, because all the options are mentioned in the Bible.
Yeah.
It's also mentioned in the Bible that a woman cannot refuse her husband. That's also in the Bible.
Yeah.
If a husband wants sex, the woman has to give it to him, whether she wants it or not.
But it's also mentioned that a husband must love his wife like God loves the church.
Yes.
In the very next chapter, to the very next verse to the one that you're saying.
Yes.
So you can't feed out.
And if the wife, or in the case I just mentioned, the sex slave or the concubine, doesn't love the husband, she has no choice.
And if the husband loves the wife like the church, why would he do it? How could he possibly do it any harm?
If you have a woman who doesn't love you and who doesn't want to sleep with you, it doesn't matter how much you love her. What matters?
That doesn't make any sense, Peter. Listen to yourself. If the husband,
are you listening to me? If a woman
but what you said didn't make sense.
If a woman doesn't love a man, but the man loves the woman, then the woman just has to do whatever he does. I know it's mentioned that you can go out and you can rape a virgin, pay the father 50 shekels, and you get to marry your rape victim. That's clear.
You're jumping from verse to verse now. Stay with one verse.
Yes. A woman who clearly doesn't love the man, is she in any way obliged to have sex with him? If so, why?
Right. Let me answer the question, but don't interrupt.
Okay.
The very next verse says, the husband must love the wife like God loves the church.
What does that have?
No, let me finish. Let me finish.
That has nothing to do.
It does, but you won't let me finish.
No, it doesn't.
Why? Okay. You talk. When you're finished, I'll talk.
So the fact that the man loves the woman, that
Like
rules
God
out
loves the church.
every choice the woman has, that makes her mute?
I think we're misunderstanding each other somewhere.
Yes, I do. Because I
Let me
know.
speak and then.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, sorry, you continue because I don't want to keep interrupting you.
No, go ahead.
You speak. When you've finished, I'll speak.
Tell me how you see it.
I see it this way. If a man loves a woman like God loves the church, why would he force her to have anything to do with sex that she didn't want?
Because he wants to have sex.
But he loves the woman like God loves the church.
That's you're still not getting the issue. You're going at this from one possible option. It's not the only option. Why would he want sex? Maybe because he wants children? Wouldn't that be an option?
Yeah, don't get me wrong. You're looking at it as end, but what I'm saying to you is, if you read the whole passage, it does say that a husband should love his wife like the God loves the church.
Yes.
Therefore, are you saying he's going to force himself on a woman that doesn't want it if he loves her like God loves the church?
I'm saying that the option is there.
Of course, the option is there. I agree with you.
Someone in the
I agree with you on that.
Someone in the chat just mentioned Christ loves the church, which translates to you either love me or you go to hell. If that's the same way, if that's the same way, and that's actually is correct, if that's the same way the husband should act, I don't think that's moral in any sort of way.
I'm not sure. Just read what he said again, please.
He said Christ loves the church, which translates to you either love me or you go to hell.
Okay, I understand. Yeah, he's not using the actual Bible for that.
I think he is, because if you don't believe in God and if you don't love God, you will end up in hell. That's what the Bible teaches. Am I incorrect?
Well, what the Bible teaches is there's only two places at the end of the world.
Yes.
One is in, and he also said, no, it is God. The Bible says God will reach out to you, and He wants nothing more, Peter, than for you to be in heaven with Him. But He ain't going to force you to be there.
Yes, He is, because He's forcing me to love Him, and that's the
no,
only.
He's not going
and
to
that's
force you
the
to love
and
Him.
that's the only way I could get to heaven.
That's if He's doing everything possible, Peter, to give you a great life, to bless your life with health, with money, with everything that you could dream of.
I could lead a perfect life. I could be compassionate. I could be helping people, which I actually do. I've helped children. I've helped friends. It's something that I do on a daily basis. That is not enough to get me to heaven. There's only one thing that gets me to heaven, and that is to love God. That's the only factor that's important.
Now,
there are no other factors that will get you into heaven. You'll have to love God. You'll have to love Jesus. That's the only criteria for getting to heaven.
And do you know why?
I don't know why. I don't even think it's a good it's a good reason. It's
Yeah,
to
but
me
if
that's no different from a mafia boss who walks in on your business telling, "Hey, nice business you've got here. All you have to do is love me and give me your money, and nothing will happen to it."
yeah,
That's pretty much
but
the same.
if you read the Bible, Peter, you'll realize that what you're saying is untrue. And I can
No,
explain why. If you allow me
because
to, I'll explain.
okay, go ahead.
The Bible says that you can't enter heaven if you have sin. That's what the Bible says. You can't be in God's presence if we have sin. And a human being, I know you're a good guy, Peter, so please don't take it as any insult at all. I know you do a lot of work for a lot of good
I
people,
don't.
as do your listeners,
Hmm.
So I'm not one of these that think atheists are immoral and evil, and not at all. I know some very, very, very good atheists that would put me to shame. So I'm not saying this, but the Bible says it is impossible for a human being to be sinless without Jesus Christ. Not because you're a bad person or not because anybody else. It's saying we are physically incapable of being sinless. Every one of us. I
Yeah,
try my best.
but
I try my best to be
if
good, but I can't be.
if 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 and I still go from the standpoint where Jesus and God are one and the same, and
Mm.
that they are both supposed to be loving. And if Jesus died on the cross for everyone
For hours.
and for everyone's sins, then there wouldn't be a problem. But
Yeah,
there is this little snag because he didn't die on the cross for everyone.
he didn't. Where does it say
No,
that?
you just said that. He didn't die on the cross for me because I don't accept him.
I never said that. Don't you're putting words in my mouth. I never said that.
No, you never. I'll rephrase it. You didn't realize that that was what you actually said, and
No,
that's what I'm
I didn't
pointing. And
say
that's
at
what
all.
I'm. So I'm going to heaven. Every atheist is going to heaven.
No, let me finish, because otherwise, if you change the subject, I don't get a chance to finish the sentence. The Bible
No,
says,
I'm just pointing out a flaw in your thinking. I'm not talking about the Bible. I'm pointing out a
right.
flaw in your thinking, not in the Bible.
Well, allow me to try and
If
correct the flaw.
Jesus died for everyone's sins and Jesus died for everyone, then everyone gets to go to heaven. Whether or not they believe in
Yeah,
God, whether or not they love God, whether or not they accept Jesus or not, it doesn't matter. If Jesus died for everyone, he died for everyone. The fact that there are exceptions, and you are aware there are exceptions, is in contradiction with the fact that he died for everyone. You are telling me he clearly didn't die for everyone because there
no,
are
I'm saying he did.
exceptions, and you are aware of the exceptions.
I'm not. Which exceptions?
I just told you, the people who do not accept Jesus.
Yeah. Now, can I speak?
Yeah,
Jesus died on the cross for everybody's sins, but it's those people who accept that he did that. Some people deny it. Some people say, "I don't believe he died on the cross
and
for
you
me."
don't see that's a clear contradiction.
No, I'm not at all. I think it's crystal clear.
Everyone, and then saying everyone but.
No, it's
is the
saying, "I
clear
died on the cross for you." No. If somebody died on a cross for you, Peter, and you choose to turn your back on him and say, "I don't believe you died on a cross, and I don't love you, and I'll spend my time trying to turn people against you, and I'll try and spend my time calling you names and trying to do this," what do you think will happen?
You add in a lot of things that are irrelevant. Calling names,
Well,
for instance.
yeah, but what I'm saying is, if the Bible says you can't enter heaven unless you're sinless, and He died for your sins.
No, it's not.
But
It's
if
not.
you,
I can't enter heaven because I'm sinless. I can't enter heaven because I do not accept Christ and I do not love Christ for what he
yeah,
supposedly did, which is to me is still doubtful that ever happened. And it's not up to me. Uh, it's in humans. If you love someone and you want to be loved, you act accordingly.
yeah,
And
I
if
agree.
you are sincere and if you are a good person and you are a loving and caring person, the other one will love you back, whether or not that's exactly the love that you're aiming for, because we have different kinds of love.
Yeah.
Uh,
Well, let me give you this.
I love my friends, which is completely different from me loving my partners. So there are different gradations of love. But I have friends who will go to any length for me, and that's clearly love, and that's something that I've earned by being me, and
Yeah,
not by just pointing at someone and telling them, "Hey, I'm a good guy. You have to love me."
yeah,
Because with all the things that I've done, the work that I've done with children, with children who were sexually abused, who were physically abused, who were mentally abused. Um, I don't know. I know of one who I would say still loves me because he comes up to me. One of a boy who was sexually abused at the age of 8. I know also of two uh, who were, I think, mentally and maybe sometimes even physically abused, who still come up to me. So there's some sort of love in them. I know of a couple of women that I've helped who have actually shown me uh, love. It's a friendship. It's nothing uh, beyond that. But it's still love. To me, a very close friendship is a form of love, and I
yeah,
have that with a couple of people. I have that with. Yesterday, I went to a friend uh, who I've lost for several years, but he came back to me when he realized that um, things that he thought about me weren't actually true, and he
good.
made the step
I'm glad.
and just said, "Hey, listen, a lot of stuff happened. Um, I clearly was wrong on some points. Can we pick up where we left off?" And that was all it took
Good.
to
Yeah,
renew the friendship, and we never went back, and we never uh, discussed what we had, and that was at times was very ugly. Uh,
right. Well,
and to me, that's also a form of love. And he would now
absolutely.
go to any length to defend me because we are friends and we know where we stand in our friendship. And
Yeah, absolutely.
if
And
I look
I'm happy.
if I look to Jesus and if I look to God, they've done nothing that comes even close. I also think that as it is depicted in the Bible, having your son suffer and die a slow and painful death doesn't do anything but just depict to me what a horrible creature you actually are when you have the power to just forgive someone and not make a statement by having someone killed, because that's something I would not and could not ever do. When my friend came back to me, I didn't have to have him sacrifice even an animal or anything. I could forgive him, and that was it. That alone, that single action makes me better than the God of the Bible, because the God
Yeah.
of the Bible wasn't capable of doing that more than once.
But the difference is, Peter, you've just said exactly the case for the Bible. You've said exactly what the whole Bible is around. That right now God is reaching out for you, and He loves you, and all He wants you to do is to turn around and accept Him, just like you have with your friend. That's all He wants you to do. As soon as you do this, you will see all the blessings that you need to see. You'll see everything you need to see.
I couldn't love a father who uh, killed his son in the way that Jesus died, just to be able to forgive me for what I may or may have not done wrong in life. That's something
Yeah.
that could
I
never
think that
happen.
I think the sad thing is, Peter, is you're
that
looking at a human perspective here. You're
yes.
not looking at the Bible at all. You're reading
I'm not I'm not
passages.
I'm not looking at it in a human perspective. I'm looking at
You
it in
are.
a more no, I'm looking at it in a moral perspective. That's something completely
No,
different. Because
no, you're looking.
morality exists even among animals. So it's not something that is special just for us humans. I'm looking it from a moral standpoint.
Well, I won't talk about the moral argument because we'll bore everybody to death if we talk to everybody about the moral argument.
I don't
For
think
one,
so. I don't think so. At
well,
least
for one,
the people that are in the chat would strongly disagree, I think, with what you just said.
well, for me, number one, you're very upset and angry over what you
No,
feel.
I'm not. No, I'm not
I
angry,
don't
and
mean
I'm not.
angry with me. I mean angry with God.
No, because I don't think he exists.
Well, okay, sorry. Yeah, you don't
I'm
believe he
angry.
exists.
I'm angry that some people do not see the horror that is in the Bible, and the horror that actually comes from God. They only see the good parts of the Bible. They don't see a global genocide as being bad. And to me, that's worrying.
Well, but again, Peter, I would say the same thing. You're looking at you look at Jesus dying on a cross as a cruel thing. I don't see that. It wasn't cruel. That was the greatest act of love that anything has ever
It
happened in
wasn't.
the entire world.
It
Yet
wasn't
you see it
cruel.
as a bad thing.
It
It's the
wasn't cruel what
greatest
they.
act of love and kindness.
It wasn't cruel what they did to him.
Imagine, Peter, that a
Oh, no,
man.
no, 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 no. Now you don't deflect. I asked a specific question. It wasn't cruel what they did to him.
What the Jewish people did to Jesus was cruel. Yeah. The act that Jesus did was the kindest, most loving act that's ever been done since the beginning of time till today, until the end of time. That's the greatest act of love. There's no greater act of love than that, what he did for us. And yet you see this as a cruel
And
thing.
you
I
still
see that.
and you still think that God is so impotent that he couldn't have chosen for a different way?
He could have if we'd have listened, but we didn't listen. You're not listening now, Peter. You don't listen.
I think you're missing the point.
No,
I
I
think
know
you
your
I
point.
I
What
think
you're
you're
saying
missing.
is that God
Is God omnipotent?
means he knows everything. All powerful. I always get the two mixed up.
All powerful.
Yes, he's all powerful. Yeah, he is.
So if he's all powerful, then why couldn't he have chosen a better way?
Peter, if he wanted to, he could force you to drop to your knees and praise him tonight, if he wanted to. But he doesn't want to. He has the power to do it, but he doesn't want to do it. He wants you to love him. And he wants you to love him of your own free will.
But that's not an answer to my question.
It is. You asked me, is he all-powerful?
Yes.
You said, is he all-powerful? I'm saying, yes, he's all-powerful. He
could have chosen a better way.
According to Peter, who's been on the earth for 55 years, yes, and sees life from a 50 years, whatever it is, 55, and you look at life from a 55 years of life, and yet somehow you think you can judge what's right and wrong for a whole eternity.
No, I can't.
But
I can judge what's right or wrong when it comes to killing a human being.
Well, are you talking about Jesus?
I'm talking about any human being.
Yeah. Yeah. If you're talking about Jesus, it's a different thing. If you're talking about just killing somebody on the street, I agree with you 100%. You can't kill a human being.
What's the difference?
Yeah.
What's the difference between killing Jesus and just a human being?
Because Jesus was fully man and fully God. And that's the difference. It's God in the flesh.
Yes.
So it's a different. It's not like walking outside in the street to Dubai and just going and killing somebody.
Well, we could argue whether or not he's dead because he rose. So he didn't give his life. He was.
You can go there if you like.
It's how the Bible depicts it. Am I incorrect? Yeah. Didn't he rise from the dead?
He wrote. Absolutely, yes.
Okay. Does that mean he's alive?
Now he's alive. Yes.
So did he give his life?
Yeah, he did.
No, the only thing he gave was 3 days. He lived before and he lived after. So he didn't give his life.
I don't think even you, Peter, could say that Jesus didn't suffer and die on a cross for that was an easy thing to do. So you can't belittle him and say that was not much.
I'm still in the camp where I think that the Jesus as depicted in the Bible never existed. And the reasons I have for that is because the story of Jesus isn't unique, and Jesus wasn't the first, which to me would raise all the red flags. But that's a different argument.
Yeah. You don't believe Jesus ever existed?
I think at this moment I'm at the point where I think that a man called Jesus, who was a rabbi, who maybe had some charisma, and had some very loyal followers, maybe.
Yeah.
I think that man could have existed. The fact if this man was crucified and performed all the miracles that are attributed to him, there I have my doubts, because we have nothing nothing concrete to go by if that's what actually happened. We have not one single document pointing to it.
Except the Bible. and Josephus and Tacitus and Pliny the Younger and all the others.
Yes, I just argued Tacitus with a guy a couple of times, and he still doesn't see it. Tacitus was born 30 years after Jesus died, and he wrote about Jesus in about the year 115. And he didn't write about Jesus, and he didn't write about the crucifixion. He wrote about people who claimed Jesus was crucified. Yes. Dus he just reported that there were still followers around.
Yeah.
And to me, that has no bearing on whether or not the facts are actually real. Because we have miracles. There's a name, and the name keeps slipping away from me because I'm terrible with names. We have a miracle where the sun stood still and moved about in the sky. We have a couple of thousand people who actually watched that.
Correct.
Saw that. We also have the normal explanation, because if you look in the sun too long, your eyes play up, and that's what you actually see. You see the sun moving when in fact the sun isn't moving at all.
Right. I don't know, Peter. I'm not an expert on the sun. So I don't know the answer to that.
That's one miracle I traced back, and off the top of my head, this is what I can come up with at the moment. I can go in depth. I'll have to look at the notes that I've made and the links that I have on that.
Does it never make you question?
That's
Peter?
where we actually.
Does it never make you question? Just as an honest question.
It not only made me question, it made me go and look for the actual facts, and I found the actual facts, because this is something that wasn't too long ago, and we have the actual facts.
No,
we cannot go back. We cannot go back to Jesus' time to see the actual facts. The fact that there are no contemporary documents about it should be alarming. The only documents that we have are at least 3 decades after the fact. And when you then count in that the average age of people was around 40, that should make you think, because when the first writings came up, most of the people who actually lived it were dead, and those that were still alive, that were alive at the time of Jesus, were children, so wouldn't know that much about it, and yet not even one of them wrote about it. The people who wrote about it never met Jesus. They wrote about what other people told them. And to me, we have a word for that, and that's hearsay. And hearsay, I can't use hearsay as evidence for anything.
No.
Supposedly 500 people saw Jesus rise from the dead, and not one of them wrote about it. Why not?
How many could write?
We have historians at the time that Jesus lived, a lot of them. No one mentions
it. Can you name any?
Not off the top of my head, I can't. I can look it up, because I have a list of, I think, over 100. So I'll try and see if I can find them.
The Jewish writers who hated Jesus, they put him on a cross and killed him. And you think they're going to write that Jesus Christ died on a cross and rose from the dead, and he's the Son of God?
Why wouldn't they?
Because they're Jewish and they put him on a cross and they hated him because he claimed to be the Son of God.
You can write about something and not make it public.
Well, and how would you be able to access it today if it wasn't public?
Sorry?
If they wrote about it and didn't make it public, how would you access it today?
If they wrote about it and we would have those documents today, it would be a different case. If we had an actual eyewitness, if we had an actual historian writing about it, it would be a different thing.
If Donald Trump did something good tomorrow and you was writing, I don't think you would write it down as good.
Why wouldn't I?
Because you don't like the guy. Because you don't like the guy, and you wouldn't write down that he's done something wonderful. I'm not. By the way, I don't like the guy either. But what I'm saying is, you wouldn't write it down.
In that case, you have me wrong, because if I would have, at least for me, I would have to stay honest. If he did something good, if tomorrow someone is running across the street and maybe hit by a truck or a bus, and Donald Trump jumps in and pushes them away so they don't get killed, I can acknowledge that as doing something good. And I would even, for Donald Trump, how much I hate the guy, I would have to say that at that point he's doing something good. If he was pushing,
I'll give you credit.
If the guy who was running across the street and possibly getting hit was I have his video up at the moment, Christopher Cantwell, I would think it's I still would say it's good, but I look at it in a little different way, because he's one of the white supremacists who in a documentary a couple of days ago said that he would kill everyone with ease, and he now just put out a video where he's crying like a baby because there's a warrant for his arrest.
Yeah, I saw it today. Yeah, I saw it.
Okay, so
let me just go back one stage, because there's one thing that keeps coming across as you're talking now. I didn't experience it in the first two talks that we did, but I experience it now. So I want to ask you the question to see what you think.
Okay.
You've made an assessment now of the historical evidence for Jesus and come up with a conclusion that you believe he's a rabbi, etc. If I understand correctly.
No, I haven't. I don't have a solid conclusion. I'm open to the fact that there might have been a rabbi called Jesus. I'm open to that fact because I couldn't refute that. That's point one.
Yeah,
and it would it would be plausible, because I think the name had to come from somewhere. So that would be a plausible explanation.
In your plausible explanation, how did he die? Because you have a plausible explanation. Yeah, you have a plausible explanation that you think he may have been a rabbi, very charismatic.
I don't know. I don't know how he died, and I couldn't make an honest statement how he died, because I don't have the facts. What I do have is, at the moment in front of me, a list of 126 famous historians and writers from the 1st and 2nd century who never mentioned Jesus. And I could list all the names. I could list all the names, but I could also send you the list.
Yeah, send me the list. I'll check them.
Tacitus is on it. For one, I'm just checking.
No, send me the list and I'll check them. I have no problem.
There are a lot of historians on it, and I'm well aware that I think there might be 3 on it that don't qualify. being on the list, because I was pointed that out at some point, and then I didn't have the list and forgot who I was supposed to cross off. But
I've got a couple of questions for you, Peter.
Sure.
Just to go back one stage to this charismatic rabbi. You agree that you've been studying this for 4 years, you said?
Yeah, little. I'm active on Twitter for 4 years, about 4 years, I think. I'm not sure exactly when I started on Twitter.
Yeah.
When I did my research and when I read the Bible was a little before that. And
My question
I
is
I
this.
went back to the Bible to go to certain verses. I haven't read it back to front again, because I don't see the need of reading it back to front again.
Yeah, but let me ask you the question that I'd like to ask, which is, and it's not meant as an insult to you, it's meant to chat. When we first started speaking, we said it's nice to challenge each other's thinking. I'd like to challenge your thinking. If you studied the Bible for 4 years, or possibly less,
you can't insult me, right? Because
yeah, I would have never. That's never.
We go a little way back. It would take
Yeah.
a lot for you to insult me at this point in time.
Yeah. Well, there's no the thing that I'm confused about is, if you study something for 4 years and then you look back 2,000 years and you say, for 2,000 years, cleverer men than you and I have sat, investigated this, looked at all the documents done this for 2,000 years and all reached a different conclusion than you. How can you be sure that in the 4 years of study,
There are a lot
you're
of
right
people.
and they're wrong?
There are a lot of people who spent a lot more time than I did, who are reaching the same conclusions. One of them is coming from the same country as you do, Francesca Stavropoulou.
Yes, I know her. Yeah. I don't know her, but I know her. Yeah.
She's made it her life's work to research the Bible.
Yeah. But what I'm saying, even if you take her into account, that's one person against.
It's one person who's part of.
And most scholars disagree with her.
I know most Christian scholars disagree with her. A lot of the secular scholars agree with a lot of the points she makes.
Yeah, that doesn't mean
the only big difference between Francesca and a lot of other people is that Francesca loves the Bible as literature, and she will defend it.
Yes, she will.
Accordingly, and a lot of people don't see the Bible even as good literature. There are good parts in it and there are bad parts in it, and I would be in that camp. So I don't agree with Francesca on everything either. When it comes to researching the facts that are mentioned in the Bible, Moses, for instance.
What I'm saying, Peter, do you think everyone that studied it before missed all these points, and then you've managed to find them? That's what I'm trying to get. That's what I'm trying to understand.
No, it's not that I've managed to find them. Over a period of 2,000 years, we get more and more evidence. And if more and more evidence points to a different conclusion than we have had so far, then we have to adjust our conclusion.
Now, you understand that the Bible you're reading today has been studied for thousands of years.
Mm-hmm.
I know you. We'll go on to different subjects. I have no problem. But what I'm saying, my point that I'm trying to get across to you is, and it's not an insult to you directly. It's more of a challenge to you. Is to say, in 3 or 4 years of studying the Bible, you seem to have made assumptions that not all of them, I agree with you 100%. There's some scholars that agree with you, but almost all of the scholars for 2,000 years disagree with you. And
Yes.
yet, in the 3 years
Because
of study,
because we have better evidence, and I don't need 2,000 years of study to go to evidence and just
we're talking about
in an
Jesus Christ.
and just in an instant can rule out things in the Bible. I can rule out Adam and Eve. I can rule out Noah's flood. I think that I can rule out Jesus as it stands for now, because there is no evidence. And I'm well aware that absence of evidence doesn't mean evidence of absence, but absence of evidence where there should be evidence certainly
There's tons
does
of it,
mean.
Peter. That's what I'm saying. How come
There isn't
for 2,000 years everybody has seen it, but now in 3 years you're saying it doesn't exist?
No one has seen it. We don't even have one single document of one single person.
You have to keep saying contemporary.
Well, to be able to have seen it, you'll have to be contemporary.
Yeah. But
we can't go back in time.
No. But you genuinely believe that in the 3 years study or 4 years study, you know more than all the people that have studied it for thousands of years?
I don't know more, but I can
get to. No?
I can get to their knowledge, and I can get to see what methods they used to get to that. That I can get to.
Don't you think that's a? You see, if I study the Bible, there's kind of a golden rule, hermeneutics. If I read the Bible passage and I interpret it in a certain way, and I check back with all the church fathers, everybody else from the beginning, from 2,000 years ago, and they all agree on one thing, and I see something different, that would make me question whether I've got it right. It doesn't mean I've got it wrong, but it would certainly make me question it.
If they all agree with you, you say?
No, all disagree. If they all disagree with my interpretation, yes. What I'm saying is, as a human being, that would make me question, why does everybody else see it one way and I see it this way?
And how relevant is someone who came to a conclusion 2,000 years ago, not having the evidence that we have today? How relevant?
Well, I thought a moment ago you were saying you need early manuscripts a minute ago. You was complaining that the manuscripts weren't early enough.
What I'm saying is that we have to look at it from our perspective and and with the evidence that we have now. If we now have the evidence that a global flood was impossible 4,300 years ago, then
what evidence is that, by the way?
Then geology, biology, paleontology, genetics.
But they're just big type.
Almost all fields of science shows us that a global flood never happened.
Good. Now we're talking the same language.
Because a global flood would leave specific evidence, and that's not there.
So would you consider
and that would come to my point that absence of evidence isn't evidence of absence, but in the case of the global flood, we should have evidence. And absence of evidence where there should be evidence is a clear sign of evidence of absence. I'm getting mixed up in my own English
No,
here,
no,
but
I can never say that either. I know the statement you're making, but I always get mixed up.
yes.
Now just go back
The
one
fact
stage.
the
Now
fact that the
go
fact
back one
that if the
stage.
flood
No.
if the, I'll make it a little bit more easy. The fact that if the global flood happened, we should have evidence of that happening. That evidence isn't
And you don't
there.
believe we have?
No, I'm certain we don't have it, because every field of science shows us the opposite. It shows us
Now,
evidence. It shows us evidence we couldn't have if the global flood actually happened.
now this abundant evidence that you have. If I said, I think I know more than all the scientists, abundant evidence, would you think I was arrogant?
Yes.
So how come when you say you know more about the Bible than 2,000 years of study on Jesus Christ, that isn't arrogant?
Because I'm not referring to my own knowledge. I'm referring to what can actually be shown to be real. If something is demonstrably real, then there's no way to get around it. If I go to the Bible and the Bible talks about Jerusalem, Jerusalem is an actual place.
Correct.
So is Tyre. So is Tyre.
Correct.
And yet the Bible states that Tyre shouldn't be here anymore. Tyre was destroyed, and according to the Bible, it would never
Be rebuilt.
be rebuilt. Yet Tyre stands today.
Yeah, Tyre stands today. And I sent you the documentary explaining the whole thing, where you can clearly see. You go on Google Earth, you can see the old city of Tyre is now a nature reserve. Never ever been built on ever. The timbers that they threw into the water.
And there I disagree, and most scholars disagree, because scholars even accept that the city of Tyre still stands today and has been for a couple of thousand years.
Today. Yeah, you can go and visit Tyre today, but you can't visit Tyre. You can't visit the old city of Tyre, because the old city of Tyre was torn down, and that's now the causeway between the land and the island. So how can you see that now?
If it is rebuilt, if it is rebuilt, and even if it is rebuilt, let's say a mile from where it originally stood, it's still rebuilt.
No, it isn't.
It's still the same. It's still the same. It's still the same city.
It has the same name.
It's still
like Amsterdam, New Amsterdam. They're not the same places.
Yes.
Boston.
But we know where the old city was, and we know where the new city was. It's the same city.
Now, is the new
at the same place with?
It's not true, Peter. I sent you the.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. And I know a lot of biblical scholars would like for it not to be, but they are wrong. As they are on the flood, as they are on Adam and Eve, because we have clear evidence that's impossible.
No,
and if we have clear evidence it's impossible, we have to accept it.
So you think the Grand Canyon was worn out by that stream at the bottom?
Yes.
Yeah, I don't.
And we can explain that. And we can explain that. And there's a simple test you can do. You can recreate it on a small scale. Take a bucket of water and throw it around the floor. It will go in one straight line. It will go in one straight line. Why will it go in one straight line? Because of the force. And it might bend a little bit. but it won't go backwards. It won't go the way that the Colorado River is going through Grand Canyon.
Yeah.
There was not there would if there would have been more force, you would have had a different path of the river. And we also can go to the different layers, and we have ways of dating the different layers. And all the dates come up with the
Yeah, I'm aware of the layers.
same results, not only in the Grand Canyon, but similar
All over
layers
the world.
across the world come up with the same dates with different ways of dating. Because we're not stuck on just one method of dating. We have different ways of dating, and the different ways of dating overlap each other, coming up with the same results.
Yeah.
And if that's not enough, we have the fossils. We don't find fossils of a different time period in a particular layer. We only find fossils of that specific time period. So
Yeah.
everything comes back. All the evidence points to an old Earth. All the evidence points to that our dating methods are accurate.
Did you see the tsunami in
And
Japan?
genetics shows us there's no bottleneck in the human population 4,300 years ago.
Explain. There's
And
no bottleneck.
there's no bottleneck. You don't know what a bottleneck is?
Yes. They say 7,000 or 10,000 is the figure that normally gets quoted to me.
It hasn't dipped below 10,000.
Right. So you're saying there is a
And the fact,
bottleneck
and
or there isn't one?
there isn't one.
So if there's no bottleneck, it just keeps...
10,000 isn't too small a number to be a bottleneck. We have I think it's cheetahs. I have to look it up. I think it's cheetahs who were nearly extinct. And we watched them go nearly extinct. So
Yeah.
we know it actually happened. We know it actually happened.
Except they're still here, Peter.
Yeah, I wasn't finished. We know
Well,
it
sorry, I
exactly.
interrupted. Sorry.
We know it happened because we saw it happen, and we can see it in their DNA, which confirms that what we think we can see in human DNA is actually correct, because we would be able to detect a bottleneck. And that bottleneck isn't there in human DNA. That bottleneck isn't there in any DNA, except for the animals where we know there was a bottleneck.
I told you last time, Peter, you won't find a bottleneck because the DNA goes back to a single pair. Their name's Adam and Eve. They lived in the Garden of Eden.
No, it doesn't. Because if we could have seen that in the DNA, if that was actually true, and Adam and Eve lived anywhere between 6,000 and 10,000 years ago, we could see that. And there's no evidence.
So far, I disagree with you. So far, Peter, every single piece of DNA evidence points back, and it keeps going back and back and back and back to a single pair. So far, they call it, mitochondrial.
No.
Yes, it does. Mitochondrial.
No,
what do they call them?
That's not where it stops.
Now, how can it go past Adam and Eve?
Mitochondrial Eve, and I always keep forgetting Adam.
I know. I always forget. Yeah, Adam. We'll just call him Adam.
Yes, they lived more than 10,000 years apart.
Agreed. I totally agree with you. Totally agree with you. But you see, You got to.
And Eve was older than Adam.
I've done the research. I know exactly what you're saying. What I'm saying is, we always get back to the same point, me and you, Peter. We have the same conversation.
But even if you believe that, then the Bible is wrong, and God created Eve first, and Adam was created 10,000 years later.
No, what I believe is
because that's where our evidence goes.
No, Peter, you misunderstand. What I believe is that science hasn't caught up with the Bible yet. That's what I believe. Science eventually will catch up.
Science at the moment is moving further and further away from the Bible. Every discovery we make moves us farther away from the Bible. We know the earth is not 6,000 years old. We know that.
Don't keep jumping around. Stick to the same one. Now, let me show you why your argument's flawed. You believe in abiogenesis.
No.
Correct?
No.
You don't believe. So how did life come to Earth?
I accept the findings we currently have. And that includes that we currently don't have the 100% accurate and correct answer of how life got here. What we do know is that life can come from non-living matter. That is a fact.
Now,
because
let me fact check you first.
Because we have seen that happen.
Amino acids. Are you calling amino acid life?
What we have seen so far is that the base elements for RNA can form naturally.
So are you saying RNA is
we cannot go back. We cannot go back to the exact situation when life arose on Earth, because we don't have all the evidence when it exactly was and what the exact situation was. What we do know is that it is
what's the hypothesis?
What we do know is that it is possible for life to arise from non-living material. That's a fact.
Yeah, there's been a number of experiments. Yeah.
Yes.
Uri Miller did an experiment. They got, I think, was it 3 amino acids? And then they did the deep thermal vents. They managed to get amino acids. Then there was another one that managed to get the RNA.
For that, I'd have to refer you to my friend Jackson, who still is keen on having a chat with you about that, because he would be a better source for that.
Look, well, let's leave that. What I want, the way I want to show it is, either way, my understanding is your belief is from however non-life came to life, you believe in a tree shape from there. You now have Stephen sat in Dubai.
You still keep.
Let me finish, Peter.
No. I know. I won't because it's not. It's not how you say it. I don't believe it. Period. I accept the findings. I accept the findings. That's different.
No,
I don't.
If you let me finish, you'll understand what I'm saying.
Yes,
what I'm
but
saying
I don't
is,
hold. What I want to make clear is that I don't hold a belief.
Right.
In anything.
So then, I thought, I may be mistaken, I thought you believed in evolution.
No.
Where in our past ancestries, we was, you can go as far back as you wish. You go back to fish, if you like. But we've evolved through species into a human being.
Yes.
I thought that's what you accepted. Sorry.
There's enough evidence to come to the conclusion that that's what actually happened. And no belief is
No.
necessary. No belief is necessary if you have the evidence. If you go out in the street and you see two cars and both are severely damaged, it's clear evidence that they hit each other.
Yeah, would make sense to me. Yeah.
Yes. If you go and look up closer and the different colors of paint, the paint from one car can be found on the other one, and vice versa. If you have the tracks on the street that show the braking of the cars, so you can see from which way each car was coming, you have another point of evidence. If the wrecks actually match up when you put them up close and the damage makes it clear that the only two things that were involved were these two cars, you have another piece of evidence. Every piece of evidence that comes in makes it more and more clear what happened. We will never be able to recreate the accident. What we can do is gather enough evidence to make a clear picture of what actually happened. And that's the same thing with life. That's the same thing with Earth. And it's not about interpretation, it's about the science and doing it in a way so you can check and cross-reference. And that's how we do it.
Yeah. Now, what I want to ask you is, what I want to ask you is that, because this is for me where it sounds ridiculous. I don't mean you personally. The theory is ridiculous, which is a moment ago you told me there was a bottleneck. Is that correct?
No, there was no bottleneck.
There's no bottleneck. So when you say no bottleneck, that's no minimum number.
When we're talking about a bottleneck, it means a period in time where the number is so low that it is that the survival of the species is in danger. That's what a bottleneck is.
Yeah. So we have 7 billion people on Earth now. If you go in a triangular shape back in time, you're saying eventually there was 10,000.
No.
So go and explain it to me then.
The number of people on Earth is fluent, and it is fluent because of a lot of factors. We had the plague, which cost a lot of lives. We have had wars over time that cost lots of lives. And when we go back in time, when the population wasn't as big as it was, for instance, in the Second World War, the impact on the global population was a lot bigger, even when a smaller number of people got killed. So it isn't a straight line going back and back and back and back.
But do you believe the population's growing?
Of course the population's growing.
Which means in the past it was less than it is now.
And not in the least because of the science that we have.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to understand. What you're thinking is, if you agree that it's going, last year was less population than this year, the year before less, the year before less, the year before less, the year before less.
Yes.
And you take that back in time.
Yes.
Are you saying that doesn't go to a single pair?
No, it can't go back to a single pair. It goes back to a single population. Because evolution, the definition of evolution is the change in allele frequencies in populations over time. In populations, not in individuals.
Peter, I've been talking to atheists for a while now. This population's is the latest. The latest catchphrase. At the moment, they've
No,
dropped the
no, it's
phrase.
not. No, it's not.
Yeah, yes,
No,
it
it's
is. They've
not.
dropped the phrase now.
It's how Darwin described it, and Darwin is the one who discovered it. So it's
The
not the
conversations
latest.
used to
It's
be.
not the latest. It's the first. The fact that people are using a wrong definition, that's not my fault.
Yes.
The definition has been the same. The definition has been pretty much the same from the moment we discovered it.
But this is where I don't get your argument. I honestly, for me,
There's,
Peter, you think I'm ridiculous for
there's not.
believing in God. For me, it's ridiculous
No,
because it doesn't
no.
make
I
any
don't think
sense.
it's.
But your
No,
argument doesn't make any
I
sense.
think. I think you could be deluded. I think there could be a lot of a lot of factors that went into that. I also think you just could be wrong.
Yes. No, but let me just turn it around.
And at least
When
at
you
some
when
point,
you say
you are demonstrably wrong because we have the evidence to prove you are wrong.
no, you don't. I
Yes, we
tell you why.
have.
This is why I said when we talk
We
about
have.
deluded, you're saying 7 million people today, 6 million people 3 years ago, 5 million people, 4 million people, and it goes all the way back. And then you're saying
It doesn't work that
you
way.
go so far back, and then
No, it doesn't work.
no, wait. Then mysteriously you stop, and you change around and come from the opposite side, because your theory
No,
just falls on the floor otherwise.
no.
It just falls on the floor otherwise. It doesn't make any logical sense. If the population is reducing every year, how come you miraculously stop? You stop, and then you change it around.
You stop at the population because a population evolves into a new species. Single individuals do not evolve into a different species.
No animal changes into a different species, but we'll talk about that another
Yes,
day.
and I can point you to evidence. Go look up the silver fox experiment.
I've seen the silver fox experiment. Yeah.
Okay,
And I've
so
seen
you have
yeah.
seen a fox change into a dog.
No, I've seen a fox change into a different fox.
Yes, of course, it still stays a fox because the lineage is a fox.
Yeah, that's all I've seen. So I haven't seen change species.
As we are still apes, and we are still monkeys, and we are still mammals, and we are still reptiles, and we are still amphibians, and we are still fish.
Peter, speak for yourself. I'm a child of God. I'm not a fish.
Because yes, you are.
I'm a child of God, not a fish.
It's a lineage. It's a lineage.
You can put any name on it.
If you come from your grandparents and your great grandparents, there is nothing that could happen to your offspring to not be related to them. Nothing.
Peter, I pray to God you never get this taught in schools. Then we're going around teaching children that they fish.
This is taught in schools, and it is taught because it is accurate and it is demonstrable accurate.
If I was the president, I'd ban it.
We have the complete human lineage from ape to human. There are no more missing links. We have all the links, and we are still gathering more and more and more links. And the gaps are getting smaller and smaller and smaller to where they are, at least for lay people, they are visible how it happened. We have the complete lineage. We have the complete lineage of whales.
Yeah, so
from land animal to sea animal. No, so you hear, that means you just haven't checked.
No, that means I have
because
checked.
You can go and check.
I checked Tiktaalik the other day as well. That was an interesting one.
Yes. And you know why Tiktaalik is a transitional fossil?
I saw.
What to me is the most amusing fact why Tiktaalik is a transitional fossil.
Go on, tell me.
And now I'm teasing, because half of the creationists say it's a fish and the other half say it's a land animal. It's an amphibian.
Well, I looked at the fossil.
That by definition makes it a transitional fossil.
Well, I know it's a key thing though for the evolutionists. I don't buy it. I looked at the fossil.
What?
You can see the
what?
video.
My friend calls it ticks all the boxes Tiktaalik instead of Tiktaalik. Do you know why?
Yeah. Go on, tell me why.
Because Tiktaalik was an animal predicted by the theory of evolution. We hadn't found it yet.
I know exactly what you're going to say.
But the theory of evolution predicted that there should be an animal like that. It also predicted when it would have lived. Could narrow it down to certain layers. It also predicted where it would have lived. So now we have a region, which was in Canada.
Yeah, I know.
And then people started digging in the correct layer, in the correct region, and over time found Tiktaalik. That's a clear sign that evolution is working. It can make predictions, and the predictions are correct. They lead us to new findings, and they lead us to exactly the findings that we're expecting.
Yeah. And have you seen the fossil?
Yes, I've seen the fossil.
You've seen the fossil?
Yes.
And that's enough evidence for you. You read the research on it. You've done the.
It isn't only the fossil. It's the research done on the fossil. It is the prediction that was made before finding the fossil. It is the fossils before and after that confirm the fossil. It is not only one thing. It's not only one single thing.
It's the geology. Did you see the guy who said he actually made the plaster cast of the legs?
It's a geology.
You can find it on YouTube. Wow.
Sorry, what?
Did you see the video where the guy is explaining how he made the clay modeling of the legs of Tiktaalik?
No.
Because there was no. Well, go on YouTube. You'll find it. The scientist who found it has done a video series.
You are aware that we have more than one fossil, correct?
Yes, I am. Yeah.
Okay. You are aware that we have tens of thousands of fossils in the lineage of humans, right?
Yes.
Okay.
But Peter, you can laugh at.
Just checking, because I don't see the relevance of one guy making clay models of legs, and I don't have anything on who this guy is, if he's even qualified in the field. What methods he used?
The scientist who found Tiktaalik did a video series. The guy who made the legs for Tiktaalik was the guy who made the legs for Tiktaalik that's used in the scientist's video series.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's the guy I'm talking about. And that's relevant how?
Because when I looked at Tiktaalik, he didn't have any legs. Well, we're going off subject. We were talking genes.
Well, I can counter that because I have a playlist running at the moment of things I want to watch and want to keep up with. At the moment, Answers News is running and showing a picture of Noah's Ark in Kentucky.
Yeah.
In that ark, we have.
Is this the Ken Ham one?
Yes, Ken Ham. In that ark,
yeah.
Ken Ham has transitional species, and a lot of museums are jealous because he had the money to make them as accurate as possible.
Right.
He has the ancestors of the horse on it, and I think he also has the ancestor of a whale on it,
Right.
and depicted it 100% accurate. So by your standards, if Ken Ham depicts it 100% accurate,
Yeah.
that should mean that the fossil actually exists, and that should mean that the animal at one point existed and is an ancestor of the whales.
Well, like you say, it could have been. I'm certainly Jackson will. I'm sure will fill me in. He's a far better expert than I am on this. It's not my.
Yes,
I don't base.
but you also can see it in a fetus. For instance, in whale fetuses, the nose starts out as a nose, and
I
while
know.
the fetus is growing, that hole is actually moving up to the top of the head and becomes a blowhole. But it
Yeah.
starts out in the fetus as a nose.
Yeah.
The
And where
same
does the human? Yeah.
the same thing goes for humans. Every
Yes.
stage of evolution is present in the development of a fetus.
Right.
Every
When I go
stage.
back, Peter, because we're talking, we're jumping subjects. We was
Mhm.
talking genes before, genes and populations before.
Yeah.
I've still not got an answer off you. That if the population's 7 billion, then 6 billion, then 5 billion, then 4 billion, then 3 billion, and so on and so on and so on. At what point do you say it stops?
It stops at a certain population, and for humans, for what we call humans, it never dips below 10,000. That doesn't say that there are earlier forms
There
of
are early.
life before that, but it still is a population. A population needs to survive. In order to be strong enough to survive, it has to be a larger population, because I think we both know what incest does to a population. And we only have to go back to Germany and to the House of Habsburg to see what happened
Yes.
there. So
Yeah.
it's not exactly rocket science. It's populations change over time, and we can see that, and we have seen that in nature. Look up ring species, for instance.
Yes, I've seen them. Yeah. Well, but I'll be honest, Peter.
According to what the Bible says, ring species is a new kind, because
what
a kind is something that can bring forth. So if you have two kinds of rabbits who cannot bring forth, you have two
is that what it
different
says?
kinds. Yes, that's what it says.
In the Bible, it says the kinds that bring forth.
It brings forth, every kind brings forth after his kind.
His kind. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, it does.
Yes.
Yeah, you're correct.
And those who
Well,
cannot bring forth are
yeah,
different kinds. Are
I've had
different
no kids,
kinds.
Peter. So what does that say about me? I'm a
Sorry?
different species than you.
I didn't catch your first thing.
I said I've had no children.
Yes.
Does that mean I'm a different species than you?
No, it just means that your line ends with you, presumably.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. But it doesn't mean it. It's not saying that we're two different species.
No, it's not. We're part of the same species. And DNA
Yeah, or
tells
kinds, whichever one you.
and DNA tells us we're part of the same species.
Well,
If you take
just so we don't.
if you take a man from uh, 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 it's not in Africa anymore, but in Southern America, we still find new tribes that have never been in contact with other humans.
Yes.
Tribes that thought they were alone on the world. And
Yeah.
we take their DNA. They're still the same species as we are.
Yeah. And miraculously, they still look relatively like us,
Yes.
which kind of goes against the evolutionary model.
So do the great apes, by the way.
Hey, speak for yourself.
Have you seen an ape? Does an ape have arms?
Of course, it has arms. Yeah.
Okay. Does it
Peter,
have
believe me, I've seen you. You don't look like a great ape.
Does an ape have hands?
Yes.
Feet?
Yeah.
Legs?
Of course, it eats. Yeah.
No. Feet.
Feet.
I mean,
sorry. Yes. Yeah. I thought you said eats. Yes. Of course, it has.
yes. Quite
You
similar.
see, I think there's a big.
Quite similar, wouldn't you say?
I would say very dissimilar. I agree with you. I get what you're trying to say, but believe me, you're not an ape.
Do you think that the great apes in body shape are very dissimilar from humans?
We have similarities, dissimilarities, if that's a word. I'm not sure if that's a word.
Yes,
but
we also have similar DNA. I think we have 98% similar with chimps, either chimps or bonobos. I'm not quite sure. I think it's chimps.
As Kent Hovind always says, and the same with bananas. Yeah?
No.
98% the same with bananas.
No. He says that.
I don't know if it's true.
He says that, and he's lying when he says it, and he knows he's lying, and he knows he's lying.
I don't know if it's true or not.
I know it isn't, and it's not even rocket science to find that out.
I'm sure I could Google and find the answer. But here's the big problem, Peter. The big fundamental difference between us. When it all boils down to it, you believe we're animals. I don't believe we're animals. I don't believe you're an animal. I believe you're a child of God. Worth more than anything that you could possibly imagine. As a child of God. No, let me finish. Now, you'd rather go around and teach my nephews that they fish.
No.
And that they ate. No, listen, let me finish.
No.
Let me finish.
If you're going to say something that is wrong, I'm going to interrupt. That's not what I would go. That's not what I was going to teach them.
You said before.
What I was going to teach them is that human beings are unique, and human beings are unique because we are self-aware, and we have developed in a completely different way than any other animal on the planet. And when I say that, there are even exceptions, because apes, crows, whales, they all use the scientific method. And we've seen them doing it.
Yeah.
They use tools.
But you believe we're just run by chemicals.
Just like us. We have no control. We just took it a little step further, and we are unique. We are special. Yes.
Well, that's nice you say that. It's nice you say that.
When it comes back to genetics, we're no different than any other animal. That doesn't make us less special. That makes us even more special.
How do you?
And the fact that you think that we came from an intelligent designer who screwed up in almost every intelligent design we see today, I think that's
a bold statement. That's a bold statement.
Yes.
What did that
have you ever seen the meme that has both Ken Ham and Kent Hovind in it, and because they both make the same claim that an intelligent God made the eye perfect, then shows both
Oh, the
men
octopus
below,
eye.
and below that it says, say the creationists wearing glasses.
I don't think we're
To me,
supposed to
to
live
me,
this long. Yeah.
to me, that's still one of the most hilarious things I've ever seen.
I've not seen it. I'll have a look for it though. I've not seen this. Well, here's the
You
other.
know, and you know what's funny?
Go on.
God created everything. God created everything perfectly. Everything. It was so intelligently designed that we now
Yeah.
have cancer. We have fungus growing inside the brains of animals, taking over control. That's so intelligently designed that it's still working today. That's amazing, and yet there's no creationist who will point that out. Not one.
I've never heard of fungus growing inside a animal's head before. So
Yes, it
I'd have
happens.
to
It
research that.
happens. It's, I think it's in South America. It's a fungus that grows inside of ants, and it takes over control of the ant's brain, making it go up a tree as high as possible, where it dies a very slow and painful death by the fungus growing inside the animal, using the animal as its nutrition until
Yeah.
it's ready to spawn, and then both end up dead, and the spawn comes down and hits more new ants who are taking over. And that's just one. We have worms burrowing in children's eyes in Africa.
Yes.
Yeah, I think it was last week, the guy in Australia who was attacked by sea fleas. Did you
Correct.
see
I saw
that?
him. Yeah.
Yeah.
I saw him. Well, Peter, let's go back. Let's get to.
That's you think that's intelligent design. You think God made those sea fleas so they could attack people and could eat their flesh while they're alive.
No, I don't think that at all.
I'd say that wouldn't speak for a loving God, but you still think that's possible.
Well,
Or
see,
there wouldn't, or there
I'm
should be
amazed that
another creator next to God.
what I'm amazed at is how you managed to take a news story like this. Even the news story itself said this is the first time ever in human history any
Yes.
human being's ever been bitten by these fleas, and now somehow you make it a case against God.
No,
That's
no,
incredible.
no.
Yeah.
I'm not making a case against God. I'm adding to your case of intelligent design. And the fact
Yeah.
that now I can come up with an awkward design is not my problem. That's yours.
Yeah. Well, I want to go back, Peter.
And
Just go backwards, otherwise
it's
we'll
not
miss the
only
main point.
it's not only that one, because there are thousands of similar things. Thousands.
I don't know. I think the human body is pretty
Because
amazing.
because one woman ate an apple, animals are
You
killing
see,
each other in the most horrible ways we can even think of. Animals are eaten alive just because one woman ate an apple and was encouraged to do so by the ex-wife of her husband, which also is skipped in the
Peter, this
Bible.
is what worries me about your beliefs. This is why I'm trying to convince you to come to
I
know
don't
more.
have beliefs. I
No,
don't
listen.
have beliefs. I have
Okay.
facts. And
Okay.
I think according to those facts. I think
Right.
I just take the facts and let my conclusions and let me lead to the conclusions. I'm not taking
Right. Well, let
conclusions
me.
and looking for facts that might or might not support them, and taking in just the ones that support my conclusions and discarding all the others. And that's what
Well,
creationists do.
no, not at all. Let me go back. What you said
Yes, it is. It's
5
demonstrable
minutes.
what they do.
5 minutes ago, you was telling me how similar I was to an ape. You was telling me how similar I was to an ape. 10 minutes ago, you was telling me that I'm an ancestor of a fish. 2 minutes
No,
ago, you
fish,
was telling me
fish,
that, no, no,
a fish is an ancestor of you.
then okay, the other way around. Then you was telling me that my body's flawed because God designed it badly. I've got bad eyes because God didn't design them right. And you want to teach the kids this? You're gonna
Yes,
give the
look at
kids.
what you want. Look,
You're gonna frighten the
look at
kids
what
to death. You're
look
gonna
at what
frighten the
you
kids to
teach.
death.
No, and that's demonstrable too, because I know
And
people.
you're also gonna tell them.
I know ex-Christians. I talked to one for over an hour yesterday who is still afraid of hell, even when he knows that what he used to believe is demonstrably untrue.
Yeah.
But he still can't let go of that
Well,
particular concept. And he wasn't the first I've talked to. I talked to a lot of people who for whom it's still something that that scares the living daylights out of them. Even when they
yeah.
know it's not true.
Well, you know how you find that totally disturbing. I find totally disturbing that you would teach my kids that
I find it child
they're almost
abuse.
like an ape. I
I find
find
it
it
child
abuse,
I find it
but I find
child
the same for you. You're gonna teach children
if you
that they're
threaten
like,
a child with eternal torture, that's something completely different than telling them they evolved from animals. It doesn't even come close.
it goes 10 times worse, Peter. 10
No,
times worse.
no.
Because what you do, yes, it does. Yes, it does. I'll tell you why. Because what you're gonna,
The fact that you are special and that you rose above what other animals can do. How is that threatening?
no, because your
And
argument
how can
falls
you
down.
compare that to threatening someone with eternal torture?
Because your argument falls down on its face. That's why. Because what you're saying
It
is
doesn't,
that
because
it does.
I have the
I'll tell
facts
you,
to I have the facts to back it up. You have
but
no fact. You have no fact to back up the position for your God. You have no fact to back up the position for Jesus, and you have no fact to back up the creation story. Not a single one. And
right now
now
go back to what we're discussing.
with everything we know, with everything science knows, everything we gained by using the scientific method, why do you think we have never found any evidence of the creation story?
Peter,
Not
you're
a
jumping
single
around.
thing.
Stick with the subject. Stick with the same
I am.
subject. You're saying that the fish were the ancestors, that we're flawed in design, that we don't have a designer, that we
Yes.
wasn't made by God, that
Yes.
we're listen. We're similar to the apes, we're similar to the animals, and
Yes.
that we developed to be this special person above the animals. That's what you're saying.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
How do
you know why we
no,
are flawed?
no,
No, I want
let
to
me
address one point. I want to address one point of it. Do you know why we are flawed?
go on, you tell me.
Because there is no intelligent designer. The
Right.
designer is the theory of evolution. The designer is sexual selection, is environmental selection, is um, the worst one they
I
say
noticed.
is survival of the fittest. We adapt to the niche we are in, and the one who is capable of adapting the best will be the one who survives. But adapting the best doesn't make you adapt it perfect to the niche you are in. And your ways of adapting are limited to what's already there.
Too right, they're limited. Too right, they're limited, yeah.
Yes. Because we came, because fish are our ancestors, now giraffes have a laryngeal nerve that goes from the brain to the heart,
Doubles back.
around one of the arteries, goes back up the neck to the larynx. Why? Because in fish, that would have been a straight line. But because
Peter, you convinced yourself.
because we evolved and the heart moved away from the brain, it became different.
You can
and
believe
it
that
became,
if you like.
no, it's not. It's not believing. It's having. It's having the facts.
No, Peter.
It's having.
You're making
It is
you're making your
having.
own facts.
No, I'm not making my own facts because we can demonstrate that's how it happened. We can demonstrate it by the fossils that we have, and we can even demonstrate it by the animals that are still alive today and evolved in different ways. We can demonstrate it.
So you can demonstrate the veins inside a fossilized fish.
No.
Good luck. Good luck.
No.
Yeah.
That's not what I said.
Yes, it is what you said.
We still have fish.
Well,
like we did have millions of years ago, and their shape is still the same. They are different animals than they were millions of years ago.
And yet you assume that millions of years ago they're the same.
Their rough shape is the same, and in some fossils we can actually find intestines.
Peter,
so we have a way.
We have a way of 2 days ago.
No.
2 days or 3 days last time somebody spoke, you was calling them all kinds of names for saying you can't look at an animal how it looks and assume things from how it looks. Now you're doing exactly the same.
No.
Yes,
no, I'm
that's
not.
What you're doing. I'm looking at a modern fish.
What I meant is I don't look out how an animal looks on the outside, because I know, the thing that I mentioned, which was a hedgehog and a tenrec, which are two completely different animals from completely different lineages. And there are, I think, two more. I think we also have a marsupial who looks pretty much the same. So you don't look at the outside. You look at the genetics. You look at the
you
inside.
See, you go backwards now, Peter.
And
don't go back on yourself on your own argument. You said,
no, I'm not.
We found the vein inside the fish, which then shows us that the giraffe's neck has the same vein.
Because we still have similar animals alive today. We still have one-celled animals, two-celled animals, three-celled animals, four-celled animals, and we have colonies of animals who are slowly developing towards becoming we have one-celled animals living in colonies, which are developing into one single organism. We also have single organisms made up in that way. One of them are sponges. Do you know that if you put do you know that if you take 4 sponges and you put them in a blender, and you turn on the blender to make them into juice, and you pour them out, do you know what happens?
No, I don't.
They go back in becoming the 4 different animals you put in the blender.
Right. And that for you proves evolution. That for me,
no, it proves a certain stage of evolution. It proves the colony form of evolution. The colony will get back together because you didn't destroy the single thing the organism is made up of. And it goes back to
Right. Well,
being it goes back to what we see as one single organism, which it actually isn't.
well, let's go back because otherwise we'll run out of time. We'll bore people. I want to get to the crux of the argument, which is the different views that we have. I don't use it accepted facts, whatever you wish to say. The truth of the matter is, you believe whether you
no.
say it live on
Every
camera
time you say
or
the words
accept.
"you believe," I will jump in because I don't, and
Okay, good. I'll change to accept.
I refuse to believe anything.
Go on. Okay, I concede. I'll give you this one.
I accept
Right.
facts.
I'll give you that. Don't worry. Right. So you accept, but what I'm saying is, you will teach the children that the ancestors came from fish through various forms, through the apes or whatever it was, to human beings. You'll also say that they're flawed in their design. You'll also tell them that they're an animal. You'll also tell them that they're special. But then when they ask you, why am I special? Absolutely no answer whatsoever. I have an answer. You have no answer to that question.
I can tell you where you have an answer. And the answer is that you are flawed. The answer is that you deserve hell.
No, don't change the subject.
That's what Christians teach their children. That they are
No,
flawed.
changing
And
the
they
subject
aren't
again.
flawed, and they aren't flawed of their own accord. They are flawed because at one point in time, according to the Bible, there was one woman who was tricked by her husband's ex-wife, the serpent in the garden, which was actually Lilith, which we know
But I won't even
from
go. I'm not even
from which we know from earlier stories where
you can
because
believe that if you like.
no, I don't have to believe that. It's how it's written down. We actually have the documents. We also have European churches depicting the serpent
Right.
in that way.
You're trying to get away from the subject we're talking about.
No, I'm not.
trying to get to the point.
Because
you're going to tell the children.
That single woman made a mistake she wasn't even responsible for, because the one responsible for her making that mistake was God, by not giving her the knowledge of good and evil in the first place, so she wouldn't be able to see if she did anything wrong, yes or no. Because of that woman making a mistake, and because of her husband being loyal to his wife and eating from the same fruit, everyone who came after that is damned. Which to me is one of the most immoral stories that I've ever heard.
Yeah, and then
someone else comes up and takes the blame away. If I would translate that to something in real life, I would come and visit you.
And you're still trying to change the subject.
And while I was visiting you, I would shoot your wife in front of your eyes. And then a friend of mine would come up and say, hey, well, listen, I'll take the blame. I'll go to jail. How would that in any way?
No, Peter, you're still changing the subject. I'm not going to. You're not getting away with it. You're changing the subject.
I'm not. You're telling me that I tell children that they are flawed. First of all, that's not how I say it, and that's how I mean it, and that's not how I would put it.
No, you didn't listen to me at all. I said to you, you said you would say to the children that they're special.
Yes.
That they're better than the animals. Are they an animal, or are they better than animals?
I think every living creature is amazing. Every little creature is in itself
is my nephew better than an animal, or is he an animal? Is he better than an animal or an animal? To you?
Okay. You'll have to let me finish this one.
Okay. I'll stay quiet.
He's no better than an animal. That's the first thing. But he is special. in our species, in our way of thinking, in our way of looking at the world, yes, he's special. And yes, we would put him ahead of an animal. But I'm not sure if that's entirely correct, because life is life. And no living thing takes precedence over another living thing. We all have to eat, which would mean that we have to kill animals in order to eat. That's how life works. And some living creatures are developed to only eat plants. Some are have developed to only be able to eat meat. And that's how they developed. A lion didn't wake up one morning and thought, hey, instead of having vegetables for dinner today, I'm going to try meat. That's not how it happened.
I'm still listening.
It slowly over time, certain animals became meat eaters, and possibly by being scavengers first, and then developed different intestines in order to be able to digest their food better. They developed different teeth to be able to chew their food better. The one who just adapted just a little bit was the
I'm still
stronger
listening.
animal, and was the one more likely to survive. In a population, if more animals develop similar things, those are the ones that will carry the lineage. And those are the ones that will slowly move from eating plants to eating animals. And there is no right and wrong, not even in killing and not even for human beings. Because if I would agree to meet you and I would see a guy standing behind you with a gun or a knife trying to kill you, I do everything in my power to prevent that from happening. And if I would be able to take him out by killing him, and that would be necessary for him, preventing him to kill you, I would do so. And I wouldn't think differently after the fact. The fact that I would have killed a human being might be terrible. In that particular situation, it was the best options, and I wouldn't regret that. Not even if you turned out to be a horrible person after that, because I think that how horrible how horrible a person may be, killing them is not the way to go. That's why I am against the death penalty, which also is in contradiction with the Bible, because the Bible thinks it's great to stone children if they don't listen to their parents. Another thing I object to.
No, I listened to you for a long time, Peter.
Yeah, I think we should call it a day.
Wait till you answer the question first. I've been trying to 20 minutes now. I've been waiting for you to answer the question. You're saying that the child is special, is an animal, but they've evolved into a higher species of animal, like a better animal. This is what you're saying. No. The question is,
no, not better and not better and not higher.
Well, you said special.
Special, yes.
So, well, you can
but
choose
not
whichever
better,
word
not
you wish.
better, not better and not higher.
So you're going to tell the child they're no better than an animal?
Well, I can demonstrate that a child is not better than an animal, because we have animals living on the bottom of the oceans. I could take your nephew there; he wouldn't survive.
No, well, so believe me, Peter,
he's not better than the animal that actually survives there. That's what I mean when we say better.
I'm stuck for words. If you honestly think that, I'm not talking about nephew, I'm talking about human beings. If that's honestly how you see human beings, that's slightly worrying.
No,
And we're not
no,
even going. We're not even going to the next
no,
stage,
it's not.
which is
We are, we
you're
are, we are,
saying
we are,
that you're saying
we
that
are,
they're special, but
we are extremely special, and by being this special, it comes with
nice words,
responsibility.
Peter.
It comes with responsibilities. The fact that we can think and we can make plans, and that we have science, makes us responsible for a lot that is happening in the world, and in that I include what is happening to animals. If you
Well,
screw up
they're sweet.
if you screw up the environment, that's your responsibility. That's life dying because of your actions.
Yeah. Well, they're sweet words, Peter, but they don't make any sense because you're
They
saying
do.
that we're special. Like this, and if I ask you to the next question, which we won't do tonight because we've been on a long time, but if I ask you the next question, the only answer you could give us is that this thought and this ability to do science and everything is purely chemical reactions. That's the only answer you can give. There's no other answer. I have a different answer.
I can give you a more devastating answer.
Go on. Go on.
What's
You
life?
don't.
What's life?
Well,
What is life?
what,
Do you know
what's
what
life?
life? Do you know what life is?
It's a good question. What's life? Well, what's your definition for it?
It's not my definition.
Okay,
It's
you're
it's
whatever you accept.
it's what we know so far, and it's what seems to be accurate.
So go on, surprise me.
Life is a chemical reaction. Nothing
Right.
more, nothing less. To us, it's special
Please don't.
because when it ends, then everything's over. To us, it's extremely special.
Yeah.
But you can have a Rolls Royce, which is, I think, still is one of the most perfect cars that we have. The way it's assembled, and the technology and the skills that go into a Rolls Royce. It's still a board on four wheels you can sit in and go from one place to another. I can get from here to Amsterdam in a Rolls Royce, and I can get there just as easily in a Ford Model T. And that's what I mean with being special. If the Ford Model T is a depiction of an animal and the Rolls Royce is a depiction of a man, they're both still the same. One is a little bit more luxurious, and one has a little bit more technology and is a little bit more special because less people can afford it.
Yeah.
But it's a good analogy, I think.
No, don't write a children's book, Peter. You'll scare the kids to death.
No, I don't.
You'll scare the kids to death.
And I know for a fact that I don't, because I've seen children more eager to go to a museum of natural history and learn about everything in nature, learn about evolution, learn about dinosaurs and about the Cambrian explosion. And they will spend, if you ask them, they will rather spend time there than sitting in a church bench listening to some old guy talking to them.
Well,
and you know how the church responds?
Go on.
By having music and by having the festivals you go to attract the kids with everything else but God. They're trying to attract the children with music, with big shows, with big stages, with lights, with everything but God. If your God would have been so special, all you would have needed is one book to attract them. And
What?
that in this day and age, you can't do anymore.
What?
Not
Well,
one single church, single church can.
let me wrap up, Peter, with this. For me, the way I see the world is different than the way I know you say accept and fact. You say whatever you wish. I'll say what I wish. You're not an animal. I don't see you as an animal. I don't see you as a chemical reaction. You're a human being made by God, an incredibly special, unique person. You can believe that your ancestors were fish. You can believe that you was whatever you used to be, whatever apes or whatever you wish to say about yourself. I don't see you in that light at all. You're a child of God,
I know you don't.
which means
I
that
know
you're
you don't. And I can tell,
incredibly special.
and I can tell you why. Because after almost 3 hours of talking, I still think that you are better, more moral than the God you worship. And you have shown it over and over and over again. Not only in this talk, but also by, for instance, trying, I lost count, maybe 4 times trying to patch things up between me and Miss Stephanie Thomason.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, and did you do that because God exists, or did you do that because you're a decent human being and you want to try and to have everyone get along with each other?
Because I like to get everybody to get along with each other.
See,
That's
that makes
the
you
answer.
more. That makes you more moral than the God you worship, and that's the Steve that I'm at least proud to be to call a friend.
Well, I class us as friends too. I enjoy our conversation. We don't agree on much, but we have a good tussle, and it's good fun. so I quite enjoy. And like I say, hopefully the listeners will enjoy. And
that's why I'm still waiting for you to have a chat with Tony, because that's something I
yes,
want to see. Tony's a little bit.
yeah. Well,
Tony's a little bit different from me. Tony is a good
yes.
guy.
Yeah, I like him. I
But
like him.
he's a little fiercer than I am. But you come from the same city, so I don't think that would be that big of a problem.
I'll need a dictionary and a thesaurus next to me for that one.
Yeah, that's something that I need too. I need 4 computers with Google standing by whenever I have a chat with Tony. But last question. You want me to set up a chat between you and Jackson?
Yeah, I'd like to. Yeah, I'd like to speak to him. Yeah.
Okay, I'll do that.
Yeah, set it up. I'd like to. I like the guy, like you say. He's a smart, intelligent guy. I doubt we'll agree on evolution, but it'll be an interesting conversation anyway. So
Okay.
yeah, if you don't mind, and like you say, and thanks,
that.
Peter, again for your time. I've enjoyed. So thanks for your time, and thanks for anybody listening. And we'll keep in touch.
for coming on again. And so next time, let's change roles, and you come up with a topic. Don't tell me up front, and you question me, and you can question me on everything you like, but don't tell me up front.
Right. Okay. Deal. We have a deal.
Okay.
All right.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks, everyone, for listening. I'll keep calling it out because she never misses a video that I put out. She's always here when we go live. That means a lot. Thanks for being here, Beach. You're incredible. We'll see when we talk again. My talk tomorrow won't be happening, so that will be at a later time. I'll keep everyone informed of what's coming up. We still have Mr. Hoffman and Pastor Luck coming, so Let's see when they have time. Steve, thanks for coming on. I really appreciate it, and I'll talk to you again another time.
Okay, you take care, Peter. Thanks for your time.
Okay.
Okay, I'll see. Bye-bye now.
Thank you. Okay, bye-bye.